2 years ago, when my autistic daughter had trouble sleeping at night, she was 1 at the time, I would toss her in her car seat and drive her around. It was one of the only ways she fell asleep soundly, and I lived with my parents in a nice neighborhood. So one night I'm driving and my girl had finally fallen asleep. It's about 9 p.m. at this point. I'm hungry and want to let her fall into a deeper sleep so I can move her. I get some food from a drive-thru and pull over onto a side street right next to the restaurant so I can eat. I'm finishing eating and looking back to check on my kid, and suddenly these super bright headlights pull up behind me a little too close. I wave apologetically, assuming whoever it is trying to park at the house currently in front of. So I pull away and start down the street. And once I'm at the end of the block and around the corner, I see headlights again. No biggie. This is a semi-busy side street, so people cut down this way all the time. Only this person is riding my ass like I'm not moving fast enough, and I get annoyed and change lanes to get out of their way. Almost as soon as I do, they follow. At this point, I realize that the car is the same sedan that had pulled up behind me on the last street. But now they are too close for me to see the make of the car, and the high beams are on so I can't see anything behind me. I curse myself for not paying better attention to the car before. I didn't want to be crazy paranoid, so I took a few unnecessary side streets and passed my neighborhood, only for this person to be behind me, turn for turn and lane change for lane change. So I panicked and called my dad. I know I should have called the police, but I was 21 and did the first thing I could think of. He was at work, 30 minutes away. He has terrible reception and decides to call me back on the landline at his work and is on his cell phone with the sheriff's department for our neighborhood, and they tell me to drive to the station. It's been close to 40 minutes since the person had started following me and kept riding me closer and closer. I'm running lights and swerving around at this point, just trying to catch someone's attention. So I drive to the station, and no one is there. Not one car, no cruisers, no one in the department office, not even any cars in the small parking lot. And they want me to pull into the lot and wait for an officer. I am alone. My 1-year-old is now fussing in the back seat, and there is only one way in or out of the parking lot. I nope the fuck past the station and tell my dad to tell the officer on the phone to fuck off, because no one was there. I see a sheriff's car at the light ahead and start to honk and flash my lights as he drives across the intersection I am driving to. He either misses what I am doing or ignores it. It's now been a little over an hour, and the person has tapped my ass 4 times. Eventually, I saw another sheriff's car and just laid on my horn, and I think he caught on because he busted a U-turn and came back towards us. As he did, the car behind me disappeared into the mall across the street, and the officer followed. I was instructed to go back to the station and wait. So I did, and eventually I was waiting so long, I went inside. The office had no one except a non-emergency phone on the desk, and that only connected me to other extensions. To wrap the story up, they made me feel crazy and said they never found the car, that all they could do was take a statement, since technically nothing happened. And he offered to follow me and my daughter home, only to drive away as soon as I parked while I was left to take my sleeping kid inside, shaking so hard I couldn't unlock the door. I run upstairs to my mom's room, shake her awake sobbing, and tell her what happened. It took me 2 days to sleep again at night, and to this day, I refuse to do night drives with my daughter. This happened in either 2009 or 2010 when I was in my first or second year of college. I was home for the weekend visiting my now ex-boyfriend. I usually went to his house for the night, and my parents generally wanted me home by 2 a.m. I was in college, but their house, their rules, so who was I to argue? Before I continue, I need to describe my hometown. I am from a tiny Midwestern town. When I describe where I am from, I generally refer to the county I'm from, which is very well known as a vacation community, rather than the town. My county is a unique place that consists of farmland and state parks with small towns in between, all of which are populated by galleries, boutiques, and expensive restaurants. In general, it's a very safe place. Coming home from my ex-boyfriend's house, I basically leave one of the small towns and head to another. It is about a 20-minute drive with woods and farmland surrounding the roads in between. Rather than take the highway, I tended to take back roads because it was faster, and I was very familiar with them from using them to avoid tourist traffic in the summer. The incident didn't occur until I was almost home. I was coming off a back road about to turn onto the county road I live on. I was waiting to turn right with my blinker on. Once I made the turn, it would be less than a minute's drive to my house. I was stopped at the stop sign because there was a vehicle approaching from the left, and I didn't want to pull out in front of it because it was dark, and I was having a hard time judging how fast it was moving. This vehicle did not have to stop, as there was not a stop sign on the county road. I noticed something weird then. The vehicle seemed to be slowing down. It didn't have a blinker on, but I thought maybe it was going to turn right onto the road I was sitting on, so I waited. At this point, the vehicle was close enough that I could tell it was a truck. The truck had now come to a stop, and I realized it wasn't going to turn. It was waiting for me. I made the decision to pull out onto my road. The speed limit on my road is 55. I didn't do much to exceed that because I was trying to determine what I would do when I got to my house. I didn't have any more of a plan with my driveway approaching, so I whipped into the driveway, parked in front of the garage, shut off my car, ran into the garage, locked the door, and made my way into the house. I don't think I'd ever booked it into the house that fast. Once in the house, I walked immediately to the entrance to our rec room, which has windows that look out upon the road and our driveway. I looked out just in time to see headlights shining in the windows. The truck was turning around in our driveway and going back the way it had come. This happened over 20 years ago. I was driving back home with my girlfriend at the time. It was Christmas Eve, and my mother's family used to hold a large celebration at my aunt's house in Estacada. This was my girlfriend's first time meeting with my extended family, but she got on quite well with them. We spent the majority of the afternoon and evening talking, playing poker, opening presents, and drinking an assortment of adult beverages. My girlfriend had been quite inebriated by the time we had to leave. Therefore, I'd be driving us home. It was around 11 p.m. or so. I was driving my girlfriend's car along Highway 211. Now this stretch of road is surrounded by farms and dense patches of forest, and parts of it are unlit. But nothing to fear. I grew up in this area, so I knew this road like the back of my hand. The both of us were just driving and talking away, just two young lovers making the most of our moment together. There is a portion of the highway that descends down an enormous hill before crossing Deep Creek. Surrounding both sides of the road are thick forests. There are no lights. The only thing we could see was the area directly in front of our headlights. I drive down the hill, cross the bridge, and uphill through more forest. It's as the highway starts to flatten out that it happens. Something sprints across the road so suddenly that I almost hit whatever it was. I slam on the brakes. I turned to my girlfriend and asked her if she saw it. She confirmed that she had, but she couldn't make out what it was. Maybe it was a coyote, as they are a fairly common sight in this area, but something felt off about it. Whatever it was that ran in front of the car disappeared into the woods next to the road. So for some reason, I decided to check it out. I turn the car around and switch on the high beams to better light up the forest in which this thing had vanished in. I step out of the car and walk towards the woods. I don't see anything, but now it feels like perhaps I'd made a grave error. My heart is pounding, and the hairs on the back of my neck are standing at full attention, but I still don't see anything unusual in the trees. Suddenly the car's horn blasts. It's not a beep 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 that you'd get if, say, your driver or passenger wanted you to hurry up and get in the car. No, this was a long, blaring beep. I walk back into the car and ask my girlfriend why she leaned on the horn like that. She said nothing. Instead, she pointed to a spot about 50 feet from where I was standing. I looked over in that direction, and that's when I saw it. Surely this was the thing that ran in front of our car. It was a man. He was completely naked. His skin was covered in dirt and mud, and in one of his hands, he was holding a hatchet. He looked back at us, and then he smiled and waved to us just before turning around and walking back into the forest. Needless to say, we got the hell out of there. Once we were safely driving again, my girlfriend explained what had just happened. While I was trying to look for the man in the area he initially vanished in, he circled back around and came out from another spot in the forest, beyond my car headlights. My girlfriend had seen something out of the corner of her eye, and that's when she saw him. Before she honked the horn, he was walking towards me, his hatchet raised as if making to strike me. We called the authorities once we got safely back home, but they never found anybody, or they did and just didn't tell us. But the officer we spoke to explained his theory. The man was obviously looking to ambush unsuspecting lone travelers for Lord only knows what reason. We all agreed that my girlfriend's quick thinking saved my life, as it let my potential killer know that I wasn't alone out there. I moved back into the area recently, so I now drive that highway often. No naked hatchet man sightings yet, but I can tell you that I'm definitely extra vigilant now, especially near Deep Creek.